marketing communication when it has the purpose to only show off how you are doing. If your company doesn't have a purpose, well, just stop. The only question that matters in it is, what do we miss if you stop? Then just don't do it. Do something else. So we are working in that show of what we nowadays offer people as food, which is completely far away on where food.
Hello everybody, welcome back at Beyond the Blend of Alberts, episode 13. My name is Glenn Matthijssen and this week's update is extremely short. Thank you all for tuning in again. Please subscribe down below. We have a massive cleanup of the warehouse today. Cleaning up the warehouse is good, it cleans up the mind, so it's extremely important once in a while. It was a super busy week, the update is massively small, but I have a super cool podcast for you. Ronald van Marlen is on the podcast. Ronald van Marlen is a fantastic businessman, but also an activist. He has an amazing story of his life. It's the first time ever that I'm totally baffled, I'm totally silent, I'm just listening in awe. I try to say smart things, I try to interrupt, I try to say stuff, it just didn't work. Ronald is full of life lessons, full of vision and passion. I hope you will love it. I hope you will adore it. Let me know in the comments what you think and see you all next week. Thank you very much, guys. I love you all. See you soon. Welcome everybody back at Beyond the Blend, a podcast by Alberts, and I am fantastically excited today because Ronald van Marlen is with us. Hello Ronald, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Thank you, Glenn.
Okay. Ronald, we have met, I think 1 year ago. You were a speaker at the innovation track that I was following back then.
Yeah.
And I think I don't exaggerate, Ronald, if I say that when I think about somebody that I find extremely brave and where I really look up to for your, your bravery. I'll keep it there, bravery. It is you, man, really. So I'm so fantastically excited you are here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think you would really help the audience if you could somehow introduce yourself, maybe by your professional career and the things that you've been doing in your rich career, just for us to get to know you.
Yeah, well, very funny, the word career, because I am what we call, let's say, a prototype of the generation on the beginning of the 80s, which in the Netherlands we call the lost generation. It didn't really matter what you studied, you would be unemployed anyway. So my career basically ended up in something because I started with something. I had literally no clue. I could not and did not even want to identify myself with a kind of profession because of that setting that I was in. So I basically went with the flow, and that means that my career started by working in a natural food store in the center of Amsterdam.
Oh, cool.
A natural food store called Manna Natural Foods, which was at that time a macrobiotic chain, which was very much related to the Japanese kitchen and also the same, let's say, embedded philosophy. And I became there in a store where we basically did not sell people products, but basically helped them with changing to a new food system. So I was basically raised up, let's say, the hard way, in the sense that you could not even work behind the counter if you would not have cooked all the seaweeds.
That's so great.
So that's what I did.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, very funny story.
I started behind the dishes. I started behind the dishes in my case, so it's very sweet.
Yeah, exactly. So no, I did not do any MBA. I was the opposite. I was studying history, and at that time that was a one-way ticket to employment anyway. There was no work in history. After I basically studied, that has changed. Then there were absolutely teachers demanded, but at that time it was completely useless to study history. So I came from the left-wing side in that sense. I came from studying in Amsterdam, University of Amsterdam, which was a left-wing oriented setting that I was in. So the last thing I wanted is to end up in business. So I went in a natural food store, did work like sorting the shelves, packing out goods, selling breads, selling tofu, tempeh. All the ridiculous things that we now find very fancy for me are basically, my wife and I sometimes feel that we are really becoming old. I'm 57 right now. And then we see suddenly that tempeh is very hot and tofu is very hot. And using sugar alternatives like amasake is very hot. And we feel sometimes that we were not even aware in that time how front-running that new voice in food was, in a sense. So I was brought up with a kind of snuffing around if the products that I was selling also really got to me. And then in a certain stage, one of my suppliers, in that time you did not have, let's say, wholesalers that brought everything once a week. You had smaller suppliers that just came with the car and dropped 5 cans of tofu spread. And then you had a cup of coffee. And then one of these guys said, well, what are you doing here anyway? You know, you're clever. Why don't you switch and see if you can find a job in marketing. And the funny thing was, at that time, Natu Food, in that time it was called, was one of the wholesalers in the Netherlands that was expanding very fast with money from Switzerland as well. And they were expanding. They built a new cold store and they built a new warehouse. And then I was basically invited for a talk and became a marketing trainee. Which basically meant you have to learn everything. And then after 1 or 2 years, we will say what the next step will be. And I had no clue. I was not a marketing guy. So I started to do a little marketing studies. I did my best, gave it a try. And then before I knew it, Natudis took over almost all the imaginable wholesalers in the Netherlands. It became one big consolidation tsunami. And because I was in the product lines, I was always, let's say, affected by bringing in the assortments that we got from the other wholesalers. So I became a product manager. I first what we call sortiments manager, and then I became a junior product manager. In the end, a senior product manager, and in the end, I was basically leading the own brands department of Natudis, which was a substantial amount of products and product managers.
Wow, it's really started from the bottom, you know.
I started from the bottom. And then after 10 years working there, we took over basically every wholesaler imaginable. I felt it was time for something new. And then I went again backwards in the chain because I started to work for the company that made one of our specific categories, and that was concentrated fruit juices, which we call Dixap, and that was for baby food. They were expanding with a factory in Turkey and a factory in the Netherlands, and they said we need someone that can join us, and I was already acquainted with them. So there I worked the next 14 years. I became the CEO of the company and a general director. We had built a factory in Turkey. We after that built a factory in the Netherlands. So I became acquainted with processing. And we basically made fruit concentrates and fruit purees. After that 14 years, I went to work for myself. I basically clashed. It was a clash of interest between me and the family, so I had to leave as a director. That meant that I could allow myself to take some time to think what will be the next step. And then I was, let's say, working 2 or 3 years for myself for different companies. I run a big project in Serbia for red fruits, organic red fruits. And then after a few years, I said, well, now it's time to create and found my own company. I did that with my partner, Jürgen Stolze, my business partner. We already knew each other from that moment on. And then we founded Nana Bio. There I am the co-owner. I have 50% and I am the managing director. We sell, grow and process difficult red fruits in the world, like everything imaginable in puree, IQF, or NFC juice. And we supply that to the industry. We don't have an own brand. We work with industrial deliveries and we organize supply chains for people. The funny thing with Nana Bio is that because we learned so much about what you should not do in your career, and that is endlessly work for people that in the end always go for their own interest. Then we said, well, the most important thing that we do with Nana Bio, and that's literally what happened when we went to the notary, we said to the notary, the purpose of the company is not to work with assholes. And I'm not a joke, because what we found out that if you follow that advice that you should never ever work together with assholes, then you have at least enjoyment in your profession. And the funny thing with recognizing an asshole is that you know it in the first half hour. Yeah. And the notary was a bit confused. He said, well, what's going on here, you know? And I cannot put that in the company description. I said, well, find a way, because this is exactly what we mean. We are having a purpose of the company is to avoid ourselves to work with the wrong people. Because it is the wrong people and the wrong companies that always kill your motivation and your real things that matter. So we stayed loyal to that. We built it up with customers that we already knew for a very long time, and they supported us. We didn't need financing because they were all friendly. Suppliers were glad that we did it. Customers were happy that we took care of their needs. And so we built up the company. We started with 500 tons per year, and now we are up to 6,000 tons per year.
Wow.
Sales is around 15 to 80 million, and we work worldwide. And we only do difficult things. We do difficult things in agriculture because we grow organic, biodynamic, BioSwiss, all the difficult labels. And we do it for, most of it is for baby food industry.
Wow.
Yeah. So we work for the most complicated. We don't have a head office. We do not have, let's say, an organizational structure with a lot of unnecessary hierarchy. Everybody knows what everybody needs to do, and in case somebody needs somebody else, they just phone.
Nice.
And in the end, there is a general director in case someone needs to decide and or sign. But we work very closely with the people, and they are sitting all over the place.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's also what we try to do. We do not only focus on having a company. We also want to see our company as a place in which people can work in the way we always wanted to work and couldn't, because till 52 or something, we also suffered a lot in either narrow family-oriented and owned companies, or working for private equity or people that just want return on their investment. So we also really want to have the company as a kind of place in which people can be themselves and take care of what needs to be done. That's also a nice challenge.
Wow.
Yeah. So that about my professional career work-wise. And then I do other things like going into all kinds of boards and supportive organizations towards organic. So I was for almost 20 years board member in the Bio Nederland, which is the foundation for the organic processors and traders in the Netherlands. And now I am already for over 10 years a board member at Demeter Netherlands, and also working for main sponsor of IFOAM EU. So I was always acquainted with the part that was not automatically related to the sales, but also to the background of our, let's say, organic social movement.
Yes, movement. Oh my God, this is crazy. I didn't know all of this. And
this is only about my work. This is not about my let's say personal career. That is a different story. But yeah.
Let's maybe jump into it. Because
no problem.
The way I know you, let's say, or the way I let's say, if I today much of it is social, of course. So when I look at your social presence, what I see is a brave, wise man who has zero fear, who goes ahead. All the big corporates, whether it is ING, whether it is Rabobank, whether it is whoever it might be, outspoken. I think I texted you even once, your messages. I know you have quite a following, and nobody even dares to press the like button on your message, because people think, oh my God, if I associate...
I get a lot of likes. I get a lot of likes on the background.
Exactly. I'm so sure that in your direct messages, it's full with supporters, but people don't even dare to press like, but actually they all agree. And so I thought, from the second we decided to get the Beyond the Blend podcast, I knew I want Ronald on there, because it's so nice.
Well, thank you for the compliment. It is indeed a nice way of saying it. Let me be very honest. I was a very scared child. And I also still, as an adult, am not the one that is born with a golden spoon in his mouth. I suffered from a lot of anxiety on the background if I would get my life running. Also because we ended up in these 80s where everything was uncertain. We even had the nuclear threat that we have right now. Again, we were children of the Cold War period. So no, I am the opposite of being a hero. But I am, one way or the other, I always stayed political and sociological interested in the power structures that we are working with. And of course, that is what I started to realize when I was working in the food industry. But let's say going back to my private part, because that is important to the private story. I was born in Amsterdam in 1965. I was the youngest of a family of 3 boys. We grew up in Amsterdam, and then we moved a lot to other cities. I was a good student. I studied history in Amsterdam and didn't finish that because I was working in the natural food store, and I was 22 when I got my first child.
Whoa.
I was living in a squatting house with my wife that I met when I was 12. I already knew her from 12. We got acquainted when I was 18. We married when we were 22, and then we had our first daughter in Amsterdam. Without having a huge planning or whatever, we just felt that we were the right people for each other. And now it turns out to be the case. I am 35 years married. I am proud of that. And I have 2 daughters of my own. They are also over 30. They are working in very nice jobs. One lives in Australia, one lives in Den Haag. And I have 2 foster daughters from Poland, which we took in when we were young. We gave them an opportunity to have a holiday to get some stress away from living in problematic families. And they basically stayed in our lives. And that is why I always say I have 4 daughters.
Nice.
My wife is an assistant professor at the University of Amsterdam in the faculty, which is about, let's say, it's called the faculty that's about ethics, and she is an expert in gender and diversity, and is doing teaching, and at the same time she does a lot of research. So we work in 2 different worlds, which is also an advice to young people start up. Don't always do the same thing with your partner. It's very important to do different things so that you can really debrief once in a while these different worlds that you are in.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah? Being in different worlds makes you, in my opinion, cleverer, and it also creates a little bit of a natural distance.
Yeah, definitely. If I can jump in there, I feel the same. Like my partner, she's working in big corporate, and I'm then more in totally in the startup vibe. But somehow this is super interesting because we have and she asks me many questions like, what are we doing to learn from it? But I also ask her many questions. How does it work? How do the structures work? And I think indeed that your advice I can underline so far in my life. I really liked it that we learn from each other, have the same mindset on stuff, but still do very different stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we did then. Then I started to work, as I just explained to you. There was nothing logic in my career. I never planned a career. I wanted to be the opposite of a businessman. That was the worst thing that I could imagine when I was 18. At the same time, life was so unpredictably difficult that I just went with the flow, and I sold nice food, good food, and things that, in my opinion, mattered. So it always had a political layer. But the more I became acquainted in the business and the more I dived deeper into doing international business, the more it became the classical, as you know, master of business administration, which I never did. Mm-hmm. I always felt shitty about it in the beginning because I felt I'm not really a businessman, you know. So when I needed to show up in these areas, I was not a big speaker. That came back later on when I became older and started to irritate myself on the behavior of corporations in my own experience, that they simply are not willing to connect themselves to the supply chain and the farmers and the complexity of agriculture. And then I picked up again my need to study history, and I looked at what is the essence of a corporation. Mm-hmm. And I still use that a lot. For me, it was a shift in the mind when it got to me that I started to realize that the legal construction of a corporation is like that they can basically only do plundering, and it's very difficult for them to go green. And then I started to bring back the message, especially when I stopped with my family-related general director position in the company. Yep. I really felt that I got my political interest back again. I had the freedom to do it, and I also took that opportunity. And then, of course, you need a little bit of skills to do it. I was not afraid of speaking out in public. That was nice. Mm-hmm. But of course, I was also afraid of daring to address power structures in the food system. Yes. The consolidated food system that we are nowadays running, where basically if you look at all the parts of the supply chains and the things that we do is dominated by a few. And I started to become more and more angry and irritated about it. And then in 4 years ago, the climate crisis hit me very hard privately with my wife. We had a daughter in Australia. We suffered there for 45 degree plus, and we hardly survived. And we said, what is going on? And then the IPCC report came out. To make a long story short, that was the moment that basically a second shift in our lives took place, that we said, oh my God, we are entering the biggest clusterfuck that we have ever seen as humanity. And that was the moment we basically looked for a place in which we could share these feelings. They were strong, they were very worried, and then we had to basically connect to people where we should not automatically need to explain why we were so worried. Mm-hmm. And that was at that time the moment that also Extinction Rebellion in the UK came up, and also in the Netherlands they had started, and we basically joined their first rebellion. Mm-hmm. And after that we never got, basically we did not got rid of it anymore. We basically stepped in, we started to do things for Extinction Rebellion. because the climate crisis, once it really hits you, it is not from the agenda. It is with us every day. And if there is one thing I would like to say, starters, don't think that you can bring something out of the business as usual. It will all be pretty useless. Yeah. The system needs to change fundamentally.
Okay.
In all kinds of areas imaginable, in the power structures, in the way we organize things, in the way we offer products. We don't have products. We don't lack products. We have more than enough. We have more than we need. So there are huge changes and transitions needed. The only way is, how are they going to develop? Is it going to be governments that come with laws, or are there going to be riots and people that basically say, and now it's enough? And it will probably be altogether everything. So working in a classical MBA, I would, the first advice to a newcomer would be, throw away everything you learned in MBA. It's not. It is where we ended up in. It is the reason why we copy paste these education as well, by offering people a perspective about business, which is completely last season at the moment. Yeah. Our problem is growth. Our problem is that we do not have a clear definition of what makes sense in life anymore. And we only think that we can consume and buy ourselves a way out. And that is over and out. We are over all the planetary boundaries imaginable. So that changed my life fundamentally. And then I said, well, what am I going to do with my company? And then the only thing I said, well, let's use the company's network, international, as a platform to at least address climate crisis. And that is what I did. And indeed, you are right, Glenn. It is true that for speaking out on climate crisis in a business environment, you need a little courage.
Really.
And you can train that with nice people of Extinction Rebellion, that when you are in an audience where young people say, well, I don't want to study anymore. I give up my study and I don't want kids anymore because I don't see a future. When you have people that are daily in despair with suffering from the feelings of climate crisis, you basically grab your little courage with you and say, now I take the stage where I can and have the opportunity. Yes. Besides the fact that I already am a privileged person, which has all the access to the network. I have the money. I have a company. I am white. I am a man. Yes. So use it. Use the privileges and come up on the audience and take the stage and confront people by the fact that we shall have to reinvent and redesign ourselves completely. Yes. And that is what I like, because there I can bring in my political, sociological interest again. Yes. And that also meant that I am still not the business guy. I am a strange guy in my position. I say horrible things about corporations, and at the same time, they are around me, and they can probably also sometimes, even if they would like to, they want to buy from me. But we don't do it. We cannot work with companies that are designed to do evil. And although they try to become green on the outside of the evil itself needs to change in the legal construction of the corporation. Yes. Yeah, you can literally bring a CEO to court if he doesn't deliver shareholder value. Exactly. It's not so voluntarily as everybody thinks. The guy is hired to make money with money. He gets millions from shareholders, and he needs to assure that it becomes more and not less. And how do you deal with that if the earth is exploding, if nature is failing, if the social structures are diminishing, if democracies are under debate? How are you doing that? And I always say to corporations, when I speak to them, I said, well, in the past it was when you were bigger, you could dominate. Now, if you are bigger, you have a huger problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the other advice to the newcomers, stay small and always be aware that what hits you is growth. And explosive growth, because you need external finances, and they will make your life miserable. Yeah. So try to ask yourself every time that you feel that the big money is basically there for you to grab it, if you would like to grab it, because the big money will not help you out with the issues that we face right now. Yeah. Big money can't buy yourself out there. The crisis is simply too big and too existential. So don't go and don't step in the same booby trap that all the people step when they want to raise a business, either by creating it and then selling it and then do something like nice sailing. Well, even the sailing will be a problem. Yeah. So you can't get out, even if you are fortunate and you can buy a nice house in California. You even have a huge problem with bushfires. Even if you are living in the bush alone with protection around you, it will not help you out. So focus on what matters. And what matters for my opinion is that we are all doing one big reconnection operation. We are alienated on all level imaginable in our lives. We are
You mean
alienated.
between people,
Yes.
or you mean with the planet, or how do you mean?
Well, let's first start with ourselves. A lot of people are alienated with themselves. They don't feel that they really literally have a body besides the head. Yeah, there's a body that you need to experience. We are alienated from whom we are and what is really important for us. We are told how to be successful. We don't ask ourselves the question if we feel happy enough by doing what we need to do. So the alienation with yourself is step one. And then you start to connect yourself with the ones that matter. And there I very much like the book from Hartmut Rosa. I think I also have it here one way or the other. And that is called Resonance. And he says, well, the opposite of feeling alienated is resonance. That means that you get kippenvel, chickenpox.
Goosebumps.
And he basically describes 4 or 5 areas in which that can happen. And he says it's like resonance you cannot do on yourself. You cannot create resonance when you don't have somebody else that takes the other part of the stick. Okay. You can only feel that it resonates if somebody else picks the other part. So it is not an individual. You cannot make yourself happy in your own. It cannot be. You are related to the outside world. And then he describes a few things. One of them is, of course, good friends and family. The ones that are dear to you, they resonate. You can be yourself. You can talk. You can love them. You can share that. And the second level in life, or the second area, is nature. Nature is opening up for resonation. They invite us. They say, join me. Look at what I generate for you. Let's enjoy that. And then there is what he calls the arts. Okay. Yeah, the arts like paintings, like music, all the things that we create, where you also say, oh my God, what's happening here? Yeah. And the fourth level is history. Okay. Feel yourself being part of a longer history in which you have a certain connection to what came in front of you. For example, your family roots. I just went into my family roots a few months ago, and I found out that my family in Amsterdam originated from 16-something. Wow. And then I realized, my God, we are already living a few hundred years in Amsterdam. And I suddenly understood why, although I don't live here anymore, I still feel that I am at home. I feel that Amsterdam, with everything that I have against it right now, still resonates for me. So what I try to do with Nana Bio is be a company that resonates, that people feel that if they deal with us, that we know each other, that we want to know each other and also feel responsible towards each other. So I fight anonymous supply chains. It cannot be that people buy from us without having interest in our farmers. I also don't allow that the farmers think that they can only grow and then hands in the air and good luck. No, you need to grow things that also in the rest of the chain needs to be adopted. Nice. So what I try to do, and that is why I cannot be so big, because at a certain level you cannot manage thousands of resonating relationships. Forget about it, guys. It cannot be. You can do that with 40, 50 customers and 30, 40 suppliers, and that's it. Yeah. And then the resonation goes down. You get more money, but you alienate from your original purpose. So this is about mankind. That is not understanding that whole neoliberal capitalism, and then I become political again, that basically alienates us from ourselves and society and what matters. And that is why we are in the shit stream we are in. The climate crisis is just, let's say, one of the crises that we see around us. The neoliberal capitalism in itself is a multiple monster crisis. We have a crisis of democracy. We have a crisis of equality. We have a crisis of our ecosystems. We have a crisis of sense making. A lot of people that are rich also become depressed. That's very funny, you know. The more they get, the more depressed they become.
There are even studies about it that, like, from a certain income level, there is no increase in happiness anymore. Right? Exactly. This question, does money buy happiness? Right? So I think you could state like money buys freedom and freedom can buy happiness, but there is a level, there is a ceiling. Like at a certain point, the increase is minimal, so it's really converting to a certain level of feeling good, and then it goes down again because all of a sudden you start worrying about everything you need to protect.
Yes. it starts to get you. And what we see is that people think, well, I have my personal life and then I have my business life and there I do different things. For me, it doesn't work. I'm not different private than I am in business. I can't do it anymore. I am also feel handicapped. I don't see that as any kind of bravery or skill. I never did a training for that. The only thing that I felt is that I become most of the time doing business is depressing.
Yes.
You know, it's depressing if you go to, I recently heard a guy that is selling bananas. He comes from Ecuador and he said, you know, Ronald, the only ones that really buy volumes in Germany are 3 or 4 retailers. Yeah. And then they invite him to come to Germany for a meeting of 15 minutes in which 4 people humiliate you that you are too expensive and then you can take the plane back.
God.
And that's the world that we create. And nobody wants to know how is your country, how are your farmers, how is your ecosystem doing? Nobody takes the plane to have a talk with the farmer that grows the bananas. And that is exactly why we, as Nana Bio, would like to be a different alternative there, because we believe that in the end, it is the alienation on the background, constructed, not by coincidence. This is a construction. We are not meant to be connected because we all want to do our own individual so-called happiness, purpose, blah, blah, blah. Well, fuck you. The purpose is not working out if the planet is burning. And the planet is going down. Europe has 2 degrees at the moment as a scenario. The world 1.2 degrees, but Europe already 2 degrees. We already see in the Netherlands a scenario of 2 degrees higher temperatures.
Yes.
It is becoming a nightmare. And we are up heading to 3 degrees and everybody still thinks that they can create all kinds of things. And I say, well, guys, we have future issues. So we always say, also a nice message to the ones that start a company. Yes. I always say to my customers, I'm not looking for people that buy from me. I need people that join me.
Yes, nice.
Yeah, and that joining is on a different level than making money because the money simply needs to rotate so that I can do what really matters. And that is try to make a difference in agriculture. That is try to make a statement about the fact that we see the importance of smallholder farmers. I also still don't have a website because of this reason. I hate marketing. I hate marketing communication when it has the purpose to only show off how you are doing. If your company doesn't have a purpose, well, you know, just stop.
Yeah.
What is the purpose of a Magnum? I don't give a shit. Yeah. We miss nothing if we don't have a Magnum. We miss something if we miss farmers that don't grow our vegetables.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So if you cannot define as a starter, the only question that matters and it is what do we miss if you stop?
Yes.
Then just don't do it. Do something else.
Oh my God. Ronald, you're a mirror in so many ways. Not so many people can silence me, but you're doing a great job. I think many of the things you say, I somehow recognize myself in, or I resonate. Let's use your word. I resonate with. Yeah. For example, the thing I also told the team many times, like the official only purpose a company has is to work for the interest of the shareholders. That's official. But in the way we should look at it, certainly as a startup, because we have the privilege to build something, which is a privilege, right? Because not everybody can say, I'm building something. But if you have the privilege of building something, then better build something where you really think that it actually matters. Because otherwise, why the hell do we do it? Like, it doesn't make any sense. So we were sticking so long. I will give you one anecdote, which I think you're gonna love. I was once in Germany. Mm-hmm. And I was there at a fair, and there was one of the biggest juice providers worldwide. And they came to me and they said, oh, you know, we saw your speech and blah, blah. We really like it, blah, blah. Actually, it was in the Netherlands, doesn't matter. And he said, you know, I don't understand why from a liquid base for your smoothies, why do you take water? And he was literally the chief scientist officer. So he was really like the on-board level, on management level. And I told him like, what do you want me to do? And he said like, add juice, because then you can claim it's 100% made of fruits and vegetables. I said, but dude, if I add juice and the sugar levels are through the roof, and why do you want to fight for a claim? Why do you want to fight for a claim?
An interesting example, because what you see if you basically start to look at the food system, and then I don't speak about the agricultural system behind it, but what we created as food, I very much like Michael Pollan that says, if your grandmother doesn't recognize that food, throw it away.
Really. Can I add a quote to that? If a product has the label vegan, it's probably not that healthy because a cucumber isn't labeled vegan, right? I mean, I'm eating plant-based myself for 5 years now, but in the end,
so we are working in that shit show of what we nowadays offer people as food, which is completely far away on where food is meant for. Most of the food better grows locally, and in Belgium you can grow things that are superb. In the Netherlands it doesn't work. You can still have sour cherry trees where we do not have them anymore, for example. Let us give us a few practical examples. And what we see is that local food distribution, in a way, is deconstructing the power structures. Nowadays, we all shop at a few retailers that dominate what they offer us, and they are not offering us what is good for us or the planet. They offer us what is in their interest. And that is most of the time food ingredients instead of fresh food. So what I always say, you must always look, and that's the next advice to people in that start up a company, be very aware that the moment you really enter the power structures, be aware if you want to go in or out. That means if you cannot deny them and you have to use them, be aware what it is doing to you. And as you beautiful tell, you can probably make beautiful machines, you can break things that matter. But at the same time, when the private equity fund that is owning your company sells your whole shit show in 4 or 5 years to somebody where you think, oh my God, how can it be? He's going to use my machinery to give children sugar. Then you have nothing to decide. The only thing you can do is sell your shares, get a lot of money, and get the hell out of there and use all the money for your depression because they stole what really mattered. Because that's the thing that we are not aware about. We are all, because of the alienation, on the edge of a depression. Most of the time, a lot of businessmen that I know that are running around in these hotels worldwide, they are completely lost. They are completely lost. And what organic, for example, has to offer is the fact that in the essence, organic means being connected with the whole system and not only with the part. That means if we speak about a raspberry, we do not even say that it is only about the farmer. It is also the environment of the farmer. It is the village. It is the family. It is the region. It is the country. And if we buy goods there, we are the guests. We are the guests. The time of colonization is over, and glad for that. But we should also really behave with much more humbleness towards these cultures and say, hey guys, you are growing raspberries here. Share how you do it. What is your secret? What do you need from me in order to make it work? And then most of the time they say, just reliably buy from me. I just want you to be reliable. I want you that I can trust you. And then we say, of course, that also means in a shit market, I must still buy their goods and find a solution. I cannot step out because that would be alienated businesses. And the alienation, we always say, and we thought in the beginning, I also thought, well, that's a kind of negative side effect, unplanned negative side effect of the capitalist neoliberal stage that we are in. It is not. It is the prerequisite for neoliberalism to function properly. That is what we should realize. We need to be alienated to feel that I am competing with you now. We are in competition. You want to grow, I want to grow. We have limited resources, so that means that we both have to run to the exit and get our portion. And that's why we all do the things in the multiple XXL way. We plunder Earth on a scale that is unforeseen, and we keep plundering. Till now, we still continue to plunder. And if you cannot look that monster in the eye for yourself, you probably have a rich life, but you have a very poor life on the other hand, because you cannot explain to your grandchildren if they ask you, Glenn, what did you, when you knew, then you said, well, I did my nice capitalist shit show, and I thought, well, let's run with the money and see. For the rest, I buy something else. I buy myself on a high place, and if the water comes, then I am done. That is not what you would like to tell to your grandchildren. You would like to say and answer, well, when I realized that it was really going in the wrong direction, I realized that what I did not really make a lot of sense, or it did, and I went for it, and that's what I did. I suddenly realized, well, I had a very tense relationship with doing business. I always ask, if people ask me, what are you doing? Then I always said, I'm doing something in business.
Oh, really?
And I was always almost a bit ashamed. I was not proud at all. I made good money. I had a nice worldwide job. That's not the thing, but I always felt, And now I changed it. I said, well, if I am in business, let's try to make the difference in my company to inspire people that work with me that it can be done to demystify and deconstruct the power structures. You must build new, smaller power structures. The big wheel is now turning for a few, and it is ending. They are the mammoth tanker on the sea. That is not going to work anymore. So we must create smaller, flexible, movable structures in which, and that's what I very much like about Belgium, by the way, that you have a huge explosion of CSAs, consumer-supported agricultural systems. Okay. I once met a guy from Ghent. He says, yeah, I make goat's cheese, and I make 40 a day. And that's it. Okay. And I can sell 200 a day, but I'm not willing to take more goats. You know what? Because I'm satisfied with 40. And I can do other things in life that matter. And he says it will stay 40 till the end of time. Yeah. And that's interesting. And so Belgium, in the contradictory of the Netherlands, where we went full scale and world supply of vegetable and fruit, well, look at the shit show we are in. Yeah. And we were always impressing everyone with our so-called efficiency in the agriculture. Well, look at the shit show we are in. So going back to smaller power structures, but then cleverly connect yourself with others so that you are not alone. And there the social movement comes in. And that is why I learn a lot from Extinction Rebellion, because we are lost that the neoliberal fairy tale tells you that you must be the sole creator of your success.
Yeah. That's totally crazy. Yeah.
Then you can claim the full money and you can claim the full exposure, and then you end up into the narcissistic paradise in which you suddenly feel that you are half God yourself. Yeah. But if you see that and you come down on earth again, you say, well, I feel myself embedded in a huge social movement that wants to change things that matter. And then you need a little courage and a little bravery to dare to be political again. Yeah, we have completely forgotten that in the end, politics is about power structures. It's about the way the government corrects power structures. And there are already countries in which corporations are more powerful than the government. That's not a good thing. Yeah, and it shall need to be addressed actively. And who is going to do that? Do you think the one that has no job? Well, they are fighting for a living. It should also be the business people with all their privileges and all their money and all their profits that they make. Speak out and say, what I'm doing is not what I planned when I started. I go back to the initial moment of my journey, which most of the time was not about making money. If it is about making money, you had another problem when you started the company.
Yes.
Yeah, just close it up, please. But if your startup really matters and has an answer on the big questions of nowadays, yeah, and not on the next product alternative, yeah. If freedom nowadays is defined that we can choose between 140 different TV screens, then we are lost. Freedom is about something else. Freedom is about the right to demonstrate. Well, give it a try. Go on the street in Brussels and see how the police treat you if you say, I am worried about climate change. Let's see if democracy still functions.
Fuck, man, I should go out. You're totally right. You're totally right.
And inspire them and say, my machine. When you find my machine, you don't only buy the fruits. You don't only buy the smoothie. You buy what I plan, and it is to give an alternative. Yes. For all the shitty blends that you buy from corporations that just buy anonymously and don't know what is behind the agricultural supply chain. That would matter. Yeah, give it that extra connection. Don't spend your money on technology alone. Also look at the fruits inside. They have the story, not the machine only. Yeah,
right. We should. This is our next step. So we should do that. Yeah. So far, we've always been focused very much on health, and then also added zero waste to it. So zero food waste because it's frozen, and then we went from plastic, from plastic to.
True, I agree. But health, health is a too small narrative.
It's true.
Do you want to become 90 in a world where you can hardly breathe and can hardly walk anymore because the conditions are unlivable? You are glad that you make 80. And then you say it's enough. It's up to the rest. But, we must not. Health is a very individualized, nice topic. And I'm not against it. Please eat healthy food. But don't think it's a game changer that you become healthy. If the health means that you feel that you are strong enough to go on the streets, I'm fine with that.
Yes, I see.
So health in itself is not a target. It is what would you like to do with your beautiful expanded lifetime. Yeah? And do you make the difference then? Yeah? Or are you going to do your own nice little healthy, happiness, purpose-driven, shitty individual thing?
Yes.
And then don't give a fuck about the rest.
Yeah.
We shall have to work and restore collective systems. We shall have to restore social movements. Even in USA, they thought they had abortion sorted. They are back to the 60s now again.
Just back, yeah.
And that's the same is going to happen with democracy. We are in the Netherlands at the end of fascism. The same happens to Italy. It's a matter of time. And then Belgium has a right-wing government that decides and say, well, organic, whoa, not going to happen. Yeah, because of political reasons. Don't underestimate that threat. When society doesn't work anymore and democracy fails, it is always the fascists that take the money and run. Right. Yeah. So be aware that you all matter in the choices you make now, and connect yourself with the networks that really want substantial change of the existing system. We shall have to go for system change. We have no other option anymore. This system does not work. The plundering has ended, and we are still running the earth as if we are colonials. Yeah. We are still doing colonial things.
Colonial,
and that is ending.
Of the earth, actually.
That's ending. Yeah, you were colonial. We were XXL colonial. And it is not by coincidence that these liberation movements that are coming up now, like Black Lives Matters, like environmental climate, is again reinventing the social movement structure, where a lot of changes in the past that really mattered and that we almost forgot that they was fighting for. Wow. You know, women's rights. Do you think that it came by just writing a letter to the government? It came by going endlessly on the streets. People died for that.
And still today in Iran, you have the exact same scenario just repeating itself.
Exactly, and not to mention the amount of people that on annual base die because of climate activism. Let us not underestimate that. We have the privilege here that we have police that in the end always behaves. Nice, But imagine you are fighting your own food supply in a country where they just kill you. Yeah, can you imagine that? And that is thousands of people a year. I started to realize that as soon as you enter the social movements again, that we shall have to connect ourselves with the problems that are. These people don't want fair trade labels. They just want us to stand up and join them. They want to feel that we are fighting the same battle as that they are battling in their country. That is the biggest gift you can give them. Instead of saying, well, we have a minimum price for your papaya. Well, fuck you with your minimum price. We just want you to fight the structures, because if the papaya still ends up in a retailer that dominates whole Europe, we end up in shit lane anyway. Yeah. So if we don't address no sales, and that's the next thing for a starter, because we do it also for starters. And I always say, don't from the beginning you create your company. Dare to speak out to the outside world. I love to sell, but I am not for sale.
Okay.
And there you can, because if you want people to join you, that is always long term. They don't like to join the next hippie guy that invents something and then becomes the next rich asshole that has no interest in the rest of the world. That's not what we need. We need people that define a journey that can take a while. And basically, in my opinion, that should be an open end. And then you are part with your machine in a broader social movement on which people work on different things. And the things they have in common, they just want to change the existing system, period. Yeah. Food supply, your machine offers us to make food supply local and small again. That is what you offer. Yeah. But if you are only going to sell these machines in McDonald's, you have an issue.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah,
I see what you mean.
So it all matters. It all matters what you choose, because if the big ones take care of you, they eat you up, or they take you over, or they give you so much growth that you automatically drive yourself into the hands of private equity. And then they are going to ask, well, very nice that you are making these machines, but we looked at your colleague and they are having a better profit performance. Can you see if you can cut your costs somewhere? And you know where you are going to cut your costs? In your fruits.
Yeah. Oh, I see what you mean.
That's the end shit of the pipeline all the time. And you know who pays the price? Nature and the farmer. All the time. So it must be embedded. It must be embedded in a broader story. That is also what I would like to advise people that start a company. Make your story big.
Yes.
And do a little thing, but make your story big.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, don't allow people to reduce you to a machine supplier.
definitely. That's some.
Yeah?
You touch a sensitive point. Because I think I'm just reflecting on what we do. I think something that we can bring and what we actually always had from the beginning, there were two values. There was health, but also transparency. And I think that is something that we bring. I see literally little kids that stand in front of the device and that they're mesmerized by the colors and the fruits. And then I think I got their interest in something very pure.
Exactly. Beautiful.
And then we connect direct to consumer over the app. People can make their own recipe, but it means that we can bring a story and a message because we have the connection in a very pure form. They were interested in mixing strawberries with banana or something like that. So we can transpire a message. So, but you definitely pushed it back on top of my agenda that, we transitioned from health to zero waste. But I think the next journey for us definitely is to reconnect that all the way through. Where do the ingredients come from? What is really the origin of these things? And how can we, as you say, interconnect and not alienate from the bigger world around us? Or not even the bigger world, just the world around us.
Yeah. So if you push the button of the strawberry, it would be nice if the farmer in Turkey or Belgium shows up and said, well, my name is Gaston and I'm growing his strawberries. You know what? He's a good guy. He really stayed loyal to me in difficult years. I am proud that I am in his machine.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that would create, let's say, moments of where you fight alienation and create connection. And I know it's difficult because the alienation at the moment is on such a high level that trying to get people connected is almost as if you ask them to start to walk again after you just broke your two fucking legs. Yeah. So everybody, all the marketeers like to pretend if they are connected, but they are not really connected because every connection comes with a price. Yeah.
No.
And the funny thing is that with climate crisis, the supply chains become so unpredictable that at the moment only the big ones with the big wallets can dominate the goods. They just buy it out of the market. Yeah. So the money will run by itself. Don't think that you can run that. But there are still a lot of farmers that realize that they are aware about the power structures they are in. And that is why I always say, we always speak in organic, the same shit we do. It's good for your health. And I say, well, what we offer the farmer is autonomy. We have food sovereignty in our hands. People that grow their own food without being dependent on a pesticide producer or a fertilizer producer. Can you imagine? That's the freedom of the farmer.
And they were actually back at the start of our story, so maybe it's a nice way to wrap it up. We started by saying, does money buy happiness? No, but it maybe buys freedom. And actually, that's exactly what you say now. If that farmer can have its freedom back, that will, in a way, generate a better world if we can then be so... so gentle and so soft.
So if it, and that is, I'm very much impressed about what you do. You are so intelligent with your machinery, and what you are building is really something that makes sense in the sense that you can offer people a high quality, fresh product in reachable areas, potentially on every corner imaginable. But if it is also embedded in the raw materials that have the same connection, then you sell much more than a smoothie only.
Okay, good.
And then you get people that join you. I want to join you. I don't want to buy from you. I want to join you. And seduce me. Seduce me on how I can join you, and so that I can answer the question. If people ask me, on which question are your machines an answer? What did we lack so desperately? Which unbearable suffering was in my daily consumption missing, so that you needed to take the stage? If you can answer that question, I join you.
Okay, good. So we have that mission, but Ronald, I'm going to make a promise here. In 6 months, we do the episode 2 because we can talk for 25 hours. We do.
That's no problem. Let's finish up.
Episode 2, and I promise you, there is already some stuff in the pipeline that very much aligns with what you say. Reconnect back to the roots. I did first efforts on it 3 years ago, but then it stranded. I redid some efforts a year ago, but there is some stuff coming. So let's do episode 2.
Well, I can't wait.
You
Glenn.
motivated
I really
me
appreciate
to push forward. So.
Yeah, I am for sure. No, and you know that I really like your exchange, and you're always interested. I really cherish that. Thank you for inviting me and giving me the stage.
Thank you so much. You literally silenced me, and it. Every time again. So we do an episode 2 for sure. 6 months, the timer is set.
And I listened.
Dude, you're the guy.
Okay.
Ronald, thank you very much. We'll wrap it up.
Thank you very much
here.
well,
and we catch you on the flip side. But in 6 months, episode 2, I promise you there's progress.
Absolutely.
Ronald,
good luck.
Ciao.
Thank you. Bye-bye, Glenn. Bye-bye.